Welcome along to another exciting edition of Scripting for Security. This week, we're looking at topic 6, which is about Whiptail, or maybe it's Whiptail. I don't know if it's Whiptail or Whiptail. So, Whiptail is about text-driven interfaces, okay? So, I made quite a fun little graphic here. This is my sort of cartoon version of a text-driven interface. Okay, there's some text driving interface there. So first of all, what is a whiptail? A whiptail is any of various long, slender American lizards from the genus that I won't be able to say, having a whip-like tail and including some forms that are parthenogenetic, which I don't know what that means. So luckily, this isn't a biology class. Whiptail is actually a program that allows shell scripts to display dialog boxes to the user for informational purposes or to get input from the user in a friendly way. And it's included by default in Debian and Debian's derivatives. So Raspbian, Kali, Ubuntu, things like that. So how do we use Whiptail? How do we create these menus? So here is a very simple example of a message box. And just let me show you this in action. So to call on the Whiptail program, we just type Whiptail, okay? And then we do MSG box, and we say what we want in our message box. Hello there, people. Okay. Now I'll just run this without any arguments and see what happens. Okay. It doesn't quite like that because what we need to do is we need to specify the height of the box. Okay. So the height is going to be 10 rows high and the width 70. And now it works. Okay, it needs to know the height and width as well. So that's going to give us this pop-up box saying, hello there, people. Okay, with that. So the library has tools built in that allow us to display these. And as you can see, it didn't take very much typing for it to do that. That's a message box. And the command there for that is just /MSG box. Okay, so some other types of boxes that we can create. Okay, this is the box here. Are input boxes to take input from a user. A yes/no box that offers a choice, yes or no. A menu box. A text box. A checklist or radio list box, and there's a gauge as well that counts, like if something's loading, it'll count across the screen. And there's also a password box, and what the password will do is it will like use asterisk to hide the user's password if they're entering it, just a little bit of security. Okay, so let's have a look at some examples then. So the first example we're going to go for, I think, is, let's just go for a really basic box type. Okay, let's go for a message box first of all. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a script. Okay, now obviously it's all well and good running these Whiptail commands on the command line, but sometimes we might want to have lots of them. So we might want to put it into a script. So at the top of my script, I'm going to call the default shell on the system, okay, with this shebang, #bang /bin/sh. And this will call the default shell, which should be dash, okay? And then this is just a comment. This is a comment as well. So I'm going to create a string variable called message. Okay, and that's just done with the assignment operator and opening and closing quotes here. In fact, just let me put syntax on. Syntax on. Right. So we can see the string in purple here. And then we have the message box with a title, Intro to Whiptail, and the message here is actually this message here. Okay, so we can recall that variable using the $sign there. Okay, so I've saved this file as message box. So come out of here, and if I just do /message box, it'll run. So here we go. We have the title of the box up here, Intro to Whiptail, and my message variable there. Today, my friends, I'll talk to thee about Whiptail. Okay, and if we press OK, press return, that presses the OK button, and then the message box goes away. So we'll just return to that example, put syntax on, and see how simple that is. We have a message, then we have, we call Whiptail, we run the message box option, we give it a title, and we pass a message in here, and we say 10 rows high, 70 wide. Now, the reason that you specify this, and the reason you'll see this is sometimes 68 or 78, and that's because if you open a default shell on a remote server with putty, it's usually, I think, 78 wide, and 10 is just the height. Okay, so if we had lots and lots of text, we might have to make the height bigger. So let me just show you an example of manipulating the width and height. Let's get our example back. So here's our basic message box. Hello there. Okay. Let's make it a more fun message. Okay. Greetings to thee. Okay. So there we go. Greetings to thee. Now what I'm going to do to illustrate this is we'll change this height to 25, let's say. So look, you can see the box is now 25 lines high. Okay, which is not very good. Fair enough, I've got a big enough screen here to display it, but now I'll show you an example of, let's say we put this to 50 and click OK. It's so big that it's gone off the screen. Okay, so you need to be aware that someone might be accessing this on a tablet or a phone or something like that. So let's turn that back down to, I've seen this quite often being 10 or 12 or 8. I'll show you it on 5. Okay, so there's 5 high. Now, if we had some text to go in here, 5 might not be high enough. So I usually go for 10. And then if we change the width now, so let's go 10, 10. Okay, that's a very narrow box. Let's do 10, 20, slightly better, 10, 30, getting wider, 50, okay, and there's 70 there. A nice size for a message box. All right, so we can specify some more options. All right, there's the title, there's the back title. Okay, now the back title is, let me show you an example of the back title working. Okay, / back title, and then we'll pop it in quotes here. Okay, and we'll say, I am the back title. I think that should work. Let's try that. So up here is the back title. Okay, because it's in the background. Okay, up there. So, we can also just specify title as well. Let me show you title. I'll just edit this one. So title is now in here. Okay, I should probably have changed the text to just I am the title. Okay, and we can have title and back title. Now, it doesn't really matter what order we put these options in. Another option is FB. Okay, and FB stands for full button. So, oh, minus FB. There. So minus FB gives us this bigger sort of 80s button here. And when we click OK, it gives an animation of like, look, see that? Pressing down. You have to be quick or you miss it. there. Okay, so if we go man Whiptail, we can see in here all the options that are available to us. And look, there's FB, full buttons. By default, Whiptail uses compact buttons, but in our command, if we specify -- full buttons, or for short FB, as displayed in the manual, then it will use these full square buttons. So there's all sorts of options that we can display in here. There's back title there. There's also scroll text. And here are the different box options. I'm going to go through some of these just now. Okay, so here is an example of an input box. So we're going to actually get input from the user with this example. So let's just have a wee look at that. And again, I'll turn syntax on. Right, so once again, to run this as a script, we're going to call the default shell from the binary folder using this shebang, hashbang. And firstly, we're going to create a variable into which we will store the input data. Okay, so input data equals, and then by saying this $, okay, we're going to specify that this is going to be a variable. And inside here, inside these quotes here, in fact, if I hover over those with VI, it should highlight the other end. There we go. See that? Inside these parens, we're going to give what we want in our input box. Now, this over here, don't worry about this. Just take this as boilerplate just now, okay? This is to do with passing the output to standard error, okay? Just accept that we have to put this on the end for input at the moment, and we'll go into that in more detail a little bit later. That's a little bit beyond the scope of this course, standard error. So, calling the message box and then passing this variable to it. So first of all, just like we did in the first example, here's MSG box, just like you get from the Chinese, a title, and then we have a pleasure to make thine acquaintance, and then we have the input data, and the input data is this variable that we created up here. Okay, and this here, 1070, is just the height and width. So let's have a look at this example running. Okay, so we've got our message box up. Name thyself. What is thy name? My name is Theodore. It's not actually my name, but okay. So then we can press the down arrow, okay, and press return. And then we can see that Theodore, the name, was captured, okay, as a variable. And we've got pleasure to make thine acquaintance, Theodore. Okay, so that's an example of getting user input. We'll run that one more time. Okay, so what is thy name? Hillary. Okay, pleasure to make thine acquaintance, Hillary. Let's have a look at the code again. Syntax on. So we have an input variable here, and then we have some value, okay, and in the message box we're going to use this input data here. So that's an example of an input box. Okay, this is an example of a yes/no box. So it's called yes/no. It just gives the user a choice whether they want a yes or whether they want a no. So let's have a look at that example. Okay, so once again, just like we did before, we're going to create this variable to store the input data using the exact same syntax as we did before. Then we're going to do what we did before, and we're going to call back the input data and say the user's name. Hello, pleasure to meet you. Whatever the input has been, we will say back. And then we're going to add another box on, yes, no. Now, the reason that I've added these two before is to illustrate the interpreted nature of this. So these boxes will just get interpreted by the system one line at a time. Okay, so we can just keep adding more boxes and it'll just keep loading them one after the other. Okay, so in this case, we've specified a title for our yes, no box. And the title is going to be raining again, question mark. And then it's a yes, no choice. Okay, and then we're going to say, is it raining in Scotland again? That'll be the main body text on the yes, no box. And then we'll specify what we want in the no button. So it always rains, and the yes button, oh good, I knew it. Maybe we'll just tidy up the, make that into a capital I there, just to cheer things up a bit. Okay, so let's see this one in action. So first of all, back to this, what is thy name? Hubert. Click OK. Just making these names up. Right, hello, a pleasure to meet you, Hubert. And now we're going to move on to this fun yes, no box. So, is it raining in Scotland again? It always rains, or oh good, I knew it. So we can make a choice now, okay, and we could capture that choice as well. So let's just click oh good, I knew it. So let's move forward. Here is an example of a checklist. Okay, so in America, like we often call this symbol a tick, right? But in America, they call it a check mark. All right, now a checklist will just allow the user to select one or more options from a list. So we specify type checklist, and then we give it a main kind of heading text. We can then specify the items in the checklist. Now, note this escape character here, this slash, that just tells Whiptail it's a new line. Okay, so at the end of each of these, we have to do the new line character, except obviously the last line, because the last line's already on a new line. We don't need any lines after it. So that's a checklist example. And here is an example menu with little radio buttons that you can choose. So we've got a checklist, and you can actually scroll up and down with the arrow keys and press space to select one of these. So what I've added just to the end of these, and I'll put these into the video description as well, as some good resources. So I updated this just the other day. I had some resources on here, but I did a Google search and sorted it by this year. So in the last year, and it seems like Red Hat have come up with quite a good new guide to using this, how to create user-friendly interactive scripts. So that would be how you would install it on a Red Hat system, DNF. If we're using Debian-based systems, we don't have to worry about that. But when we go down, here's an example of generating a query. Here is a yes/no box that I just showed you. And notice they're using 78 wide, which is default. Okay, so that's one resource. I found this good blog post by this chap. I don't know how, Gies de Jong. It's a Dutch, it's .nl domain, so I'm guessing it's a Dutch name. I probably said it wrong there. And he's got lots of good examples in this blog post that he's made that you can have a look at. Another point to note is if you're on Ubuntu, the background is purple by default. It's set by the operating system. I've also put the actual manual here. So this is a shell scripting manual that takes you through all the different types of boxes. So those are some good resources that I've just added to be available. Now, let me just open up this week's task. So, ooh, that's new. Okay. Let's move this over here. Okay, so this week here's what we're going to do with our newly acquired Whiptail skills. We are going to, first of all, check that this is installed. And then we're going to create 3 files, menu.sh, fruit.csv, and vegetables.csv. So what we're going to do is we're going to populate some items into the fruit CSV and the vegetables CSV. Now, you can add your own selection of fruits and vegetables if you like. Don't feel that you're, don't feel constrained by this. But just if you're lacking in imagination, I've put some examples in for you. Now, notice that we've got a comma separated value file here. Okay, we've got column 1 is the fruit and column 2 is the number of fruits. And once we see this, we realize we can do operations on this with awk. So the first thing we're going to do is create a message box just to check that Whiptail is working. All right, so let me just run that off now just to show you what that would look like. There you go. Whiptail is alive. So then what we're going to do is we're going to create a menu system using Whiptail. So we're going to create a program in the file menu.sh that we created up in step 1. And the program is going to have the following options. So let me just see if I can get these all on the screen. So there's eight things that this program, 8 features this program has to have. So the first screen should ask the user if they want to proceed or exit the program. Then the second box that comes up, the second screen should say to the user, it should present a menu, and the user can select 2 choices, grep or awk. If the user selects awk, the menu should take them to a different menu asking for the name of the file that they want to awk. If the user selects grep, the menu should take them to a different menu asking what file they want to grep. Now, the user should then be able to input either fruits or vegetables.csv. The menu, if awk was chosen, should awk the second column of the chosen CSV and display the results back to the user if they chose awk. If they chose grep, it should grep the chosen CSV and display only the lines containing the letter E. Okay, and then once that's done, the program should return back to the first screen to ask the user if they want to proceed or exit. So just on these 2 options here, either 2.6 or 2.7. So let's say the user's input fruits.csv and they chose awk. Okay, what will happen is awk will display the second column of the fruits.csv. So it'll just display 3, 4, 5, 8. Okay, but if the user chose grep and fruits.csv, the menu should only display lines containing the letter E. Okay, so for example, it would display apples, pears, and tomatoes, but it wouldn't display plums because that doesn't have the letter E in it. Okay, same operations, but just if they chose the vegetables CSV, it wouldn't display carrots or onions, but it would display potatoes and celery if grep was chosen. Please feel free to create your own vegetables CSV. I'll leave that up to you. Okay, so that's this week's task with Whiptail. I hope that was a useful introduction to it. Hope that demonstrated some of the things that we can do it. I will stop this recording just now. Thanks for listening. Any questions?